If I ask you one simple question today, why is your life not changing the way you want it to? Most people will say, because my situation is bad, because people are against me, because luck is not with me. But the truth is very uncomfortable. Life does not change when the year changes. Life changes when you change. And before you become a new version of yourself, you must do one important thing: delete your old self. Just like your phone hangs when it has too many useless apps, your life hangs when you carry old habits that no longer serve you. Most people spend their entire lives searching for someone to blame. When things go wrong, the first instinct is to point outward, towards circumstances, upbringing, lack of opportunities, difficult people, or bad luck. Blame feels comforting because it protects the ego. It allows a person to believe that they are not at fault, that life is unfair, and that success is reserved for someone else. But while blame may offer temporary emotional relief, it quietly steals the most valuable thing a person has: personal power. The moment blame enters the mind, growth exits the room. Taking ownership of one's life is not about denying difficulties or pretending that challenges do not exist. It is about recognizing a simple truth. While you may not control everything that happens to you, you always control how you respond to it. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a privilege. The day a person realizes, my life is my responsibility, that day marks the beginning of transformation. Ownership shifts the focus from complaining to creating, from excuses to solutions, and from helplessness to action. Blame keeps people trapped in the past. It constantly replays old stories: what someone did wrong, what should have happened, what was unfair. Ownership, on the other hand, anchors attention in the present moment. It asks a powerful question: what can I do now with what I have? This question changes everything. It turns problems into puzzles and obstacles into opportunities for learning. Instead of waiting for external validation or rescue, responsible individuals become proactive architects of their own progress. In professional and personal life, the difference between average and exceptional people is rarely talent or intelligence, it is accountability. High performers do not waste energy explaining why something failed. They analyze, adjust, and move forward. When a mistake happens, they do not defend it, they own it. This mindset builds trust, credibility, and resilience. People naturally gravitate toward those who take responsibility because they radiate confidence and reliability. Ownership communicates maturity without saying a word. Blaming others also weakens emotional strength. When control is handed over to people or circumstances, emotional stability becomes dependent on external factors. A responsible person, however, develops inner stability. They understand that reactions are choices, not reflexes. Even in difficult situations, they choose growth over bitterness and learning over resentment. This emotional discipline becomes a competitive advantage in both leadership and life. Many people fear responsibility because they associate it with guilt or pressure. In reality, responsibility is deeply liberating. When you accept that your actions, habits, and decisions shape your future, you also accept that you have the power to change that future. This realization builds self-respect. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on commitment. You stop demanding fairness from life and start creating value regardless of conditions. Ownership also strengthens character. It teaches humility by acknowledging limitations and courage by facing them. It removes the need to prove oneself right and replaces it with the desire to become better. Over time, this mindset compounds. Small acts of responsibility, keeping promises, managing time, correcting mistakes, build a strong internal identity. You no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances, but as a person capable of handling whatever comes next. When blame disappears, clarity appears. Energy once wasted on complaints is redirected toward progress. Focus sharpens. Confidence grows not from perfection, but from consistency in taking responsibility. Life may still be challenging, unpredictable, and demanding, but it no longer feels powerless. Ownership does not guarantee an easy journey, but it guarantees forward movement. And forward movement, sustained over time, is what ultimately transforms an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. Every conversation you have with yourself is shaping the direction of your life, whether you are aware of it or not. Long before the world responds to you, your mind has already formed an opinion about who you are and what you are capable of. This internal dialogue runs silently in the background, influencing confidence, decision-making, and emotional resilience. When that voice is negative, critical, or dismissive, it becomes an invisible barrier that limits growth. People often underestimate how powerful words can be when they are spoken inwardly, repeated daily, and accepted as truth. Negative self-talk does not usually arrive loudly. It appears subtly, disguised as realism or self-protection. Thoughts like, "I'm not good at this," "I always mess things up," or "this is not for someone like me" may seem harmless, but over time they shape identity. The brain does not distinguish between external criticism and internal judgment. When negative messages are repeated, the mind begins to operate from a place of limitation rather than possibility. Performance declines, risk-taking reduces, and opportunities are avoided. Not because of lack of ability, but because of lack of belief. Professional success requires not only skill, but also mental alignment. High-performing individuals understand that they must become their own strongest allies. They replace destructive inner narratives with constructive ones. This does not mean ignoring weaknesses or pretending everything is perfect. It means speaking with clarity, fairness, and intention. Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," they say, "This is challenging, but I can learn." This subtle shift in language changes emotional responses and opens the door to problem solving rather than panic. The quality of self-talk directly affects emotional regulation. When the inner voice is harsh, stress levels increase and confidence erodes. Setbacks feel personal and overwhelming. On the other hand, supportive self-talk creates emotional stability. It allows individuals to process failure without being defined by it. They view mistakes as feedback, not as proof of inadequacy. This mindset builds resilience, enabling people to recover faster and stay focused under pressure. Self-talk also influences behavior more than motivation ever will. People act in alignment with how they see themselves. When someone repeatedly tells themselves they are disciplined, capable, and committed, their actions begin to reflect those beliefs. Conversely, when someone identifies as lazy, unlucky, or incapable, even small tasks feel heavy. Identity-based thinking is powerful because it turns effort into habit. Over time, these internal statements become self-fulfilling patterns that shape outcomes. In leadership, communication with oneself sets the standard for communication with others. Professionals who manage their inner dialogue effectively tend to lead with clarity and composure. They do not project insecurity or frustration onto their teams because they have already addressed those emotions internally. Their confidence is not loud or aggressive, it is calm and grounded. This inner alignment creates presence, which is often mistaken for charisma, but is actually self-mastery. Developing positive self-talk requires awareness and consistency. The goal is not constant positivity, but intentional accuracy. Harsh self-criticism is rarely accurate. It is exaggerated and emotionally driven. Constructive self-talk, on the other hand, is grounded in facts and focused on solutions. It acknowledges effort, recognizes progress, and reinforces growth. Over time, this practice rewires thought patterns, making confidence a habit rather than a struggle. When the internal voice becomes supportive, external validation loses its control. Approval is appreciated but not required. Criticism is considered but not absorbed as identity. This independence creates mental freedom. Decisions are made from purpose rather than fear, and actions are guided by values rather than doubt. A strong inner dialogue does not eliminate challenges, but it ensures that challenges are met with strength rather than self-sabotage. The way you speak to yourself each day quietly determines the level at which you live, work, and lead. Comfort is one of the most subtle obstacles to personal and professional growth. It rarely appears as something negative. In fact, it often feels deserved, harmless, and even necessary. Comfort convinces people that they have time, that effort can wait, and that consistency is optional. It rewards short-term relief while quietly delaying long-term progress. Over time, this preference for ease becomes a habit, and that habit gradually lowers standards, expectations, and potential without ever announcing its cost. Discipline, in contrast, rarely feels attractive in the moment. It demands structure, effort, and the willingness to act even when motivation is absent. Many people wait to feel inspired before they take action, but discipline works in the opposite direction. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation. Professionals who understand this do not rely on emotions to guide their behavior. They rely on systems, routines, and commitments that operate regardless of mood or circumstance. The pursuit of comfort often disguises itself as balance, but there is a clear difference between rest that restores and comfort that weakens. Rest is intentional and temporary. Comfort is habitual and indefinite. When comfort becomes the default response to difficulty, challenges begin to feel heavier than they actually are. Tasks are postponed, standards are lowered, and opportunities are missed. Discipline, however, strengthens the ability to handle pressure. What once felt uncomfortable becomes normal through repetition and exposure. In competitive environments, discipline is a defining factor. Talent may open doors, but discipline determines who stays in the room. Professionals who consistently prepare, practice, and execute develop reliability. They do not seek shortcuts or wait for ideal conditions. They understand that progress is rarely dramatic. It is built through small, often invisible actions performed daily. Over time, these actions compound into expertise, confidence, and trust. Comfort addiction also affects decision-making. When ease becomes the priority, choices are filtered through convenience rather than value. Difficult conversations are avoided, feedback is ignored, and accountability is postponed. Discipline encourages the opposite behavior. It promotes clarity over avoidance and growth over approval. Disciplined individuals are willing to face temporary discomfort to protect long-term outcomes. This willingness sets them apart in leadership and life. Physical, mental, and emotional strength all follow the same principle. Muscles grow through resistance. Skills improve through deliberate practice. And character is formed through challenge. Comfort removes resistance, and without resistance, there is no growth. Discipline introduces controlled difficulty, allowing individuals to expand their capacity gradually and sustainably. This process builds confidence rooted in experience, not assumption. Many people fear discipline because they associate it with restriction or loss of freedom. In reality, discipline creates freedom. It reduces chaos, indecision, and regret. When actions are aligned with goals, mental energy is conserved and focus improves. Disciplined routines remove the constant need to negotiate with oneself. This clarity allows for creativity, strategic thinking, and meaningful progress. Consistency is where discipline proves its true value. Anyone can perform well occasionally when motivated. Disciplined individuals perform reliably even when conditions are unfavorable. They show up when it is inconvenient, continue when progress feels slow, and remain committed when results are not immediate. This consistency builds credibility both internally and externally. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. Actions taken repeatedly form beliefs, and beliefs shape self-image. A person who consistently chooses effort over ease begins to see themselves as capable and dependable. This identity reinforces future behavior, creating a cycle of growth. Comfort offers temporary relief, but discipline offers lasting strength. The choice between the double, always made daily, often in small moments that seem insignificant, yet determine the trajectory of an entire life. Comparison has become one of the most common and destructive habits of the modern world. With constant access to curated images of success, happiness, and achievement, people are continuously exposed to versions of others' lives that are incomplete and highly edited. This environment creates a distorted sense of reality, where progress is measured against appearances rather than substance. As a result, individuals begin to question their worth, speed, and direction, not based on their own journey, but on someone else's highlight reel. The tendency to compare often begins innocently, but it quickly turns into a source of dissatisfaction. When people focus on how far others seem to be, they overlook how far they themselves have come. This shift in attention drains motivation and replaces it with frustration or self-doubt. The mind becomes occupied with timelines that were never meant to be followed, creating unnecessary pressure and unrealistic expectations. Growth, which should be personal and purposeful, becomes a race with no clear finish line. Professional development suffers greatly under the weight of comparison. Instead of building skills and refining strengths, individuals become distracted by external benchmarks that may not align with their values or circumstances. They begin to chase recognition rather than mastery, visibility rather than impact. This misalignment often leads to burnout, as people attempt to meet standards that do not reflect their own goals or capacities. True excellence is rarely achieved by imitation. It is built through focus and intentional effort. Comparison also undermines confidence. When attention is constantly directed outward, internal validation weakens. Achievements feel smaller, progress feels slower, and success feels temporary. Even meaningful accomplishments lose their value when measured against someone else's perceived advantage. Over time, this erodes self-trust and creates hesitation in decision-making. Individuals begin to doubt their instincts, delaying action in favor of seeking approval or reassurance. Every journey unfolds within a unique set of variables: background, resources, timing, opportunities, and challenges. Ignoring these differences leads to unfair self-judgment. Two people may start in the same place and arrive at different outcomes, not because one is superior, but because their paths require different lessons. Comparison ignores this complexity and simplifies success into a misleading narrative. Growth is not linear, and progress cannot be standardized. Focusing on one's own path restores clarity and momentum. When energy is invested in self-improvement rather than self-evaluation against others, progress becomes more consistent and fulfilling. Attention shifts from outcomes to process, from speed to direction. This inward focus encourages patience and persistence. Quality is essential for long-term success. It also allows individuals to recognize and build upon their unique strengths rather than diminishing them through constant comparison. In leadership and professional environments, those who avoid comparison tend to collaborate more effectively. They are less threatened by others' success and more willing to learn, contribute, and support. This mindset fosters growth-oriented cultures where progress is shared rather than competed for. Confidence rooted in self-awareness creates stability, enabling individuals to perform without the pressure of constant validation. Comparison may provide temporary motivation, but it rarely sustains meaningful progress. It ties self-worth to external metrics that are beyond one's control. Focusing on personal growth, however, builds resilience and purpose. When success is defined internally, satisfaction becomes independent of external noise. Progress is measured by improvement, not imitation. By committing to one's own journey and allowing it to unfold at its natural pace, individuals create space for authentic growth, sustained confidence, and lasting fulfillment. Many people move through life on autopilot, following routines without questioning their direction or meaning. Days become predictable, filled with obligations and tasks that are completed out of habit rather than intention. While routine can create stability, living without purpose slowly drains energy and enthusiasm. When actions are disconnected from a deeper reason, even success can feel empty. Purpose is what transforms daily effort into meaningful progress and gives significance to both achievements and struggles. Purpose acts as an internal compass. It provides clarity when choices are difficult and direction when motivation fades. Without it, decisions are often driven by convenience, pressure, or comparison. With it, decisions are guided by values and long-term vision. Professionals who operate with a clear sense of purpose are better equipped to navigate uncertainty. They remain focused during challenges because they understand why their effort matters. This clarity reduces distraction and strengthens commitment. Living with purpose does not require having every detail of life planned in advance. It begins with understanding what truly matters: principles, impact, and personal values. When actions align with these elements, work becomes more than a source of income. It becomes an expression of identity. This alignment creates consistency between what one believes and how one behaves. Over time, this consistency builds credibility, confidence, and inner satisfaction. Purpose also fuels resilience. When obstacles arise, those without a strong why are more likely to disengage or settle. Purpose-driven individuals, however, interpret difficulty as part of the journey rather than as a signal to quit. They see challenges as opportunities to grow closer to their vision. This perspective does not eliminate stress, but it gives stress context. Effort feels worthwhile when it is connected to something meaningful. In professional environments, purpose enhances performance and leadership. Individuals who understand their purpose bring intention to their roles. They take ownership of outcomes and contribute beyond minimum expectations. Their engagement is deeper because their work reflects personal values. This intrinsic motivation often leads to higher quality results and long-term commitment. Purpose-driven professionals are not easily distracted by short-term rewards because they are focused on sustainable impact. A lack of purpose often leads to constant searching, new roles, new goals, new environments, without lasting fulfillment. Progress may be visible, but satisfaction remains absent. Purpose resolves this internal conflict by aligning ambition with meaning. It allows individuals to pursue growth without losing themselves in the process. Success becomes defined not only by achievement, but by contribution and integrity. Purpose also strengthens self-discipline. When the reason behind an action is clear, consistency becomes easier. Daily habits gain significance because they support a larger vision. This connection reduces reliance on external motivation and increases internal drive. Purpose turns discipline into a choice rather than a struggle. It encourages persistence even when results are not immediate. Clarity of purpose brings peace in decision-making. It simplifies choices by providing a clear filter for what aligns and what does not. This reduces mental fatigue and indecision. Individuals become more selective with their time, energy, and commitments. Over time, this focus compounds into progress that feels both successful and fulfilling. Living with purpose does not guarantee an easy path, but it ensures a meaningful one. When actions are aligned with values and vision, effort feels intentional rather than exhausting. Purpose transforms routine into direction and ambition into impact. It gives strength during uncertainty and clarity during success. A purpose-driven life is not defined by constant excitement, but by sustained meaning, thoughtful progress, and a deep sense of alignment between who you are and how you live. Let me leave you with this thought. Your future does not need a new year, a new place, or new people. Your future needs a new you. And the new you cannot be created without deleting the old you. Delete blame. Delete negativity. Delete comfort addiction. Delete comparison. Delete purposeless living. When you clean your habits, you clean your destiny. Today, make a promise to yourself. Not to change everything overnight, but to change something starting now. Because small habits, practiced daily, create extraordinary lives. Thank you.